Hey friend, welcome to the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I'm your host, Emily Nichols. I'm a self-care coach who is on a mission to help you get your body and mind fit through simple and sustainable self-care habits. And I get it. I'm a busy working boy mom who used to feel like a hot mess all the time until I found a solution, my own self-care routine. And friend, I want that for you too. Join us each week to hear attainable self-care tips for all areas of your life from my amazing guests or quickie episodes with me sharing my own experiences and professional wellness knowledge. After each episode, you'll leave with an action plan to start making self-care a priority in your life and get your body and mind fit. So grab a cup of coffee, glass of wine, or your favorite sparkling water, and let's do this. You're listening to episode 82 of the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I hope you're staying warm and cozy wherever you are. Here in the Midwest in Indiana, it is really pretty cold, but at least the sun has been shining. Sometimes it's kind of hard January through March here in the Midwest. It's a little gray, so I'm appreciating the sunshine any day that we have it. Hey, I just wanted to remind you that if you are wanting to get in some easy and fun virtual workouts with me, check the link in the show notes. I do have a monthly subscription that you can join to get some workouts with me. Pretty much they're pre-filmed, ready for you to go, upper and lower body and HIIT style classes, all 30 minutes long. There's always a appearance by one or both of my dogs as well. So it's just real life. And it's just such a wonderful way to take care of your body and your mind and spirit. So check that out if you want to work out with me, and be on the lookout on social media over at Emily Nichols 22. I'm having a fun announcement come out really, really soon, which it's something that's been a goal of mine for a while, and it's getting ready to happen, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be so vague, and that's rude, but hey, you got to tune in to see in the next couple episodes what my big announcement and surprise is for you all. So hey, let's get into today's episode. I love the word rhythm and flow. That, you know, that feeling you get when you're in the flow, you're getting work done, you're getting dinner on the table, dishes are done, you're getting stuff done for work, and you're just feeling in the flow of your daily life. You're in this rhythm that is just working well for you and your family. If you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, Emily. Yeah, because some days my days are not in harmony, if you will. They're not meshing well together, if you will, because some days are filled with overwhelm or you're unmotivated and things go wrong and life happens, and all that rhythm and flow you wanted to be in today is just a big, loud mess. And some days are like that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the rhythm you can be taking within your life to make self-care a priority and live a life where you don't feel crazy from the time your feet hit the floor until your head hits the pillow at the end of the day. And I get it. I have plenty of days like that, but I feel like there is a way for you to get into that rhythm and flow in order to feel your best every day. So when your head does hit that pillow, you rest peacefully and know that you had the best day for you and what that looks like for you. And I was so excited to have this conversation today with Kate Saffle. She's the perfect person. You're going to love this conversation. Let me tell you a little bit more about Kate. She's a life coach for moms, so all of us, and she's the host of the Streamlined Motherhood Podcast. So she's a musician's wife, a mama to 3, and she coaches Overwhelm moms on how to use mindset and strategies to create a happier and more purposeful life for them and their family. So finding some type of rhythm every day. She believes that every woman is capable of creating her dream life, no matter her circumstances, and she loves showing others the way. And this is really cool, y'all. She is living her dream life, traveling the U.S. full-time in an RV with her family in search of the best beaches, coffee, and places to kayak. I love that. I love that. I would love to do that someday. We've talked about taking a trip out west with our kids, like flying out there and having an RV for a couple of weeks to see everything out there. That would be a really great test on your marriage too, I'm sure. But that sounds amazing. But Kate and I really dig in deep into the hard aspects of self-care and what that looks like as a busy mom. It's really, really hard, and everyone views self-care in their own ways. It's definitely more than just massages and pedicures, although, like I always say, there's nothing wrong with that stuff. But self-care can really be a priority for you as a mom. And you can really find rhythm and pockets of time within your day to make self-care a priority for yourself. So listen in. We're going to dig into that deeper today with Kate Saffle. And make sure you stick around to the end of the episode where I'll share my three biggest takeaways. So let's go. All right, gang. Thanks so much again for tuning in to the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I'm so excited to interview a fellow podcaster, Kate Saffle of the Streamlined Motherhood Podcast. Kate, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I can't wait to dig into this conversation. But first question I ask all my guests is, Kate, what does self-care mean to you?
Yeah, I have been thinking about that because in the past, I always associated self-care with very external things like the bubble bath, the manicures, and I know that you go into this as well, Emily. But for me, self-care really has to do with understanding and honoring our physical needs, our mental and emotional needs, and our spiritual needs, and then carving out the time and putting the resources toward caring for ourselves in that way.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it's more so internal than external. That's such a good way to put it.
Yes, it really is. And I think that, as a society, we focus on the easy, quick fixes, but it is that long-term internal work that really supports us as women, as mothers, and all of the roles that we fulfill.
Yeah. And like you said, it's work. It's an ever going journey. It never really ends.
Yes.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, Kate, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your story and what inspired you to do what you do today?
Yeah. So, like probably many of your listeners, I have been a working mom in some capacity for most of my motherhood journey. And I hit a point about 5 years ago where I just felt overwhelmed. I felt depressed. I felt purposeless. I had little ones at home. I didn't really like my job. And I found that I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, which is kind of, a little bit of a warning sign. And so I started to really evaluate every inch of my life and get really clear with myself about the trajectory of where I was going. And if I stayed in that space, would I be happy with the person I was showing up as? So once I did that deep work and I began working with a life coach myself, I found that I needed to jump onto a new path. And it wasn't easy, but it has been so worthwhile. And so for the last several years, I have been serving in the capacity of being a life coach for moms. And so it has been my honor to take my struggles, my challenges, my lessons that I've learned from being overwhelmed with all of the things, and then help other women's apply the mindset and the strategy to up level and improve their lives as well.
Yeah. Mindset and strategy. That is something that needs to go hand in hand when it comes to helping any woman, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, we really need both because if you have strategy without mindset, your thoughts, the undercurrents that we don't always pay attention to will derail you unless you are very intentional about evaluating those, seeing what is coming up, seeing your old patterns, your old stories, and then working through those in a way that does allow you to apply the strategy and the systems and the routines that we all gravitate to and that we all want to improve our lives.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need to get out of our own way,
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is such the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kate, let me ask you this. What does living a streamlined life mean to you? I know it's different for everyone, but what does that mean for you and for how you help your clients?
Yeah. So, really, living a streamlined life means knowing yourself and your purpose so well that you are willing to say no to the responsibilities, the activities, and the ideas that do not fulfill that purpose. So, it's being bold and fearless and confident about who you are and how you're going to show up in your life.
Yeah. Setting those boundaries are hard, though. It's really hard to say no as a mom, I feel like.
It is so hard. And what I find with my work, with working with my clients, is that when we struggle to say no, it has to do more with how we see ourselves and our own self worth.
Mm,
So it's often more of an issue of not feeling worthy of telling others no, feeling that we're going to lose their validation, their approval, and their support if we turn something down. But often it's the opposite. Often we actually gain others' support and validation when we are brave enough to stand up as who we are and stand up for our needs.
yeah, absolutely. And I like how you pointed out saying no to not only activities, but also ideas, about yourself or what you think others think. I mean, that's such a big statement.
Yeah. And, we all have beliefs that we hold,
Mhm.
every single one of us. And a belief is just an idea or a thought that we repeat to ourselves over and over again. And sometimes others' beliefs get stuck in our own heads.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you help your clients overcome that? Because, like I said, we get in our own way sometimes and with our own mindset and guilt, it's really hard to overcome that. So, what are a couple of steps you would take a client through to kind of overcome that way of thinking?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is I teach my clients awareness,
Mm,
which is simply noticing what is coming up in their heads, right? So we have, 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. That number kind of fluctuates depending on who you are asking, but that's a lot of thoughts.
mm,
Typically, though, we have about a dozen that are the ones on repeat, right? It's like that annoying song that you heard on the radio or that kid song, like the Baby Shark one.
Oh,
Oh
God,
my
yeah.
goodness. Right? And the thought goes on repeat. So we bring awareness to it and we see it. We don't apply a judgment. We just notice that it's there. And
Mm,
then once you have that awareness, you can start asking yourself, is this true for me? Is this something that I want to believe? Or is this helping me? And
mm,
often the answer is no, it's not. And
mm,
from there, there's other, strategies and tools we can implement that help you to rewrite those thoughts and
mhm.
choose ones that are more supportive.
Yeah. I like those questions to ask yourself. I followed the work of Byron Kelly, and she talks a lot about
Yes.
asking yourself, is this
Mhm.
true? But also, is this helping me as well? Most
Oh,
cases, the answer is no.
I love Byron Katie, and
Mm,
I love what she says about how we often create our own pain
mm,
through our thoughts. Like the emotional pain that we experience has to do with what we are thinking about ourselves and our situation. And so, if we can release those thoughts, often the emotional pain will go with it.
You have to release those thoughts. And that's a habit you have to build up over time because you got to think you've been speaking so negatively to yourself or thinking these other thoughts, and you have to flip the script, and that's not going to be overnight.
Exactly. It's like anything. It's like changing the way that you eat or implementing a new workout routine
Mhm,
or helping your kids learn to do chores. There's the consistency over
mhm,
time. Those small little steps are
mm.
what will get you there.
Absolutely. Consistency is the key to like everything, but we give up
Everything in
so
life.
soon. We give up so soon. We don't see results right away and we just give up so soon?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're really great at helping moms find rhythm in their lives. And I love that word for speaking about what your day looks like, that rhythm and that flow. And I feel like when you're in that flow and you're feeling good, you're in the rhythm of your life. But how do you help moms kind of lose that overwhelm, that dread sometimes we feel when we wake up in the morning like, okay, as soon as my feet hit the ground, here we go. And the day runs them and them instead of them running the day. How would you help a woman find that rhythm in her life?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple tactics that I would recommend. The first is making a list of everything that you think you should be doing
Mm.
on a weekly basis. And you can get as detailed as you want on this. It's akin to a time audit. But I like to take it to another step, which is you look at all of the things that you do on a weekly basis and you write next to it who it is for. Is it for you?
Ooh.
Is it for your kids, your
Mhm.
partner, your work, PTA, whatever the things are? And you can add up those hours and see, okay, how much time am I allocating for my kids? How much time am I allocating for myself?
Mm.
And so on and so on. And then from that place, you can consciously decide, do I want to be doing all these things? Our sense of overwhelm comes from feeling powerless in our days. Like
Mm.
we don't have control over our schedules control us, and we just have to show up and put in the hours, and then we go to bed each night feeling exhausted.
Mm.
But there is an easier way once you have a better idea of your time. From there, you can start to think new thoughts that lessen that sense of overwhelm. So, some of the ones that I really like that my clients report are very helpful to them is that I have all the time that I need. And
Mm.
what needs to get done will get done. And that lessens a little bit of the pressure that we feel that we have to do all the things all the time because we are humans, we aren't perfect, and there is a limit to our capacity.
Mm.
And once we allow ourselves to be human and let others know the same, that we aren't able to do everything for everyone, then that does start to decrease that feeling of overwhelm.
Hey gang, cutting in real quick to tell you about my favorite meal delivery service, Cooked. They are a Chicago-based meal delivery service, and let me tell you, my family is obsessed. So Cooked offers chef-crafted meals that are cooked simply with only the purest ingredients, and they have 3 different meal types. So they have signature whole food meals, plant-based vegetarian meals, and even better, Whole30 approved meals. They're an official Whole30 approved meal delivery service. And my husband's last round of his Whole30, this was a game changer. It made his Whole30 even easier, and me too, so I wasn't cooking on the meals, and the meals were delicious. We're still ordering them every week within our food freedom. So head over to eatcooked.us and you can use the code EmilyNichols15 to receive 15% off your first order, and then Emily Nichols 5 for every order after that to receive 5% off your meals. So go check out eatcooked.us and let me know your favorite cooked meal that you receive. You're gonna love it. Yeah, I think this all goes back again to being self-aware and your mindset. I do a lot of time audits with my clients as well, because we focus a lot on habits and habit stacking and where we can fit in little forms of self-care throughout the day. But I love how you've taken it a step further and for each activity had them write down who this is for. And I can only imagine, if I feel like I need to sit down and do this now and see all the activities throughout the day, how many are not for me. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally. And you mentioned the rhythm part,
Mm.
and I love the word rhythm because it feels a little bit more loving than a strict schedule.
Mhm.
Right? When I think schedule, I think back to, like middle school and the bell system and
Yeah.
all of that. And for some of us, especially if you're a type A personality, you thrive on that kind of regularity. But I think for a lot of women, their bodies don't operate in that way. They need something a little bit more gentle that allows them to flow through all the activities in their day. And sometimes when we aren't pushing so hard, we actually can expand our capacity. And so that's why the rhythm part of it is just such a kinder approach
Mhm.
for ourselves.
Yeah, I love that word so much. I love it so much. I just read or I listened to Rhythms for Life. Have you read that book or heard that
I
book?
haven't, no, but now I'm curious.
Okay, it's by Rebecca Lyons. You'll have to take a listen. And she also has a daily planner to go along with it, but it's scheduling out rhythms throughout your day. Like, what are your daily rhythms and figuring those out? It reminds me a lot of what we're talking about.
Oh, yes. Okay. I definitely want to read that. And rhythms are so great too for our kids. Like, right, like
Mm.
that's another area that, especially with little ones. So my background is in simplicity parenting, which is it's a book and it's a method I've gotten certified in. And the daily rhythms for little ones can be so soothing and reassuring and create that stability, especially with everything going on in the world. I feel like our kids, ourselves, we all need that grounding aspect of daily rhythms.
Well, you got to think when you have a baby, you are you almost are trained to be like, okay, I gotta get the baby on a schedule. I gotta get on a schedule. And then that need doesn't necessarily go away. But I think we lose sight of that for sure.
Oh, totally. Yes. Yeah, that is such a good example.
Yeah. Well, kids thrive in their own rhythm as well. So, my oldest son, he's 12 and he has golf tryouts in March. So, it's getting just a little bit warmer here in Indiana. Not really warm, but warm enough where he's going outside and practicing a little bit. And he's incorporating some workouts and flexibility training and that I wrote for him. And I was like, well, hey, how about I get you a planner so you can write out your schedule for the week so you can keep track. Well, I'm going to putt this day. I'm going to work on chipping this day. And I'm going to work out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and, rest on these days. And he was like, yeah. And I've gotten so much joy watching him write in his planner and making those things more true versus just in my head, oh, I'm going to do this, this, this. I think there's such power in writing it down and empowering your kids to do the same thing. It's been really cool to see him do that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I love that so much. And oh my gosh, that's so inspiring as a mom to be that example for your child. And then also to have the tools to equip him with, okay, here's the strategy, and I'm going to walk this with you. Mm-hmm. So I love that so much.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely thriving on his schedule too. And he may not stick with it every day, just like how I may not stick to my rhythms every day, but that's okay.
True.
That's life. That's life. Well, let's dig into self-care a little bit, Kate. I know you mentioned it's the internal work, what we're doing for like our mind, our emotions, our body, our spirit. But when I talk to my clients, other than time, their biggest challenge sometimes is guilt. They feel guilty for carving out time for self-care. They feel guilty for, saying to their spouse, hey, would you mind making dinner while I go for a walk real quick? Because I just need, just 20 minutes to myself. And I get this question so much. How do I overcome mom guilt? How do I make time for self-care? And what would you tell a listener listening today how to overcome that feeling of guilt and actually make the time for themselves?
Yeah. I mean, if you're listening and you are feeling guilt about taking time for yourself, I would start by asking yourself, why? Often we don't even get to the root of what is creating our guilt. And typically, like we kind of talked about earlier in the conversation, Emily, so often our guilt comes from our assumptions about what other people think that we should be doing. Mm-hmm. And we don't ask ourselves what we want to be doing. We let ourselves stay in that conflict between what it is we want and what it is that we think others want. But I would ask yourself very seriously how long you can go on serving others when you aren't meeting your own needs. Because we all get to a point where we hit that burnout. And our service to our families and our work and our community, it starts to breed resentment. So the guilt is actually an early sign of being on a path that you want to hop off of. Now, if you're feeling like you don't have enough time, our thoughts about time actually create the experience of there not being enough of it. So if you're going through your day, you're like, I don't have enough time, I have too much to do. It's going to create this panic, the overwhelm. You're going to feel like you're struggling and you're drowning. And what do we do when we're in that place? Well, we're more tempted to get on our phones. We're going to hit the fridge and we're going to snack. We're going to walk aimlessly around our houses and do what one of my clients calls procrastinating, where you like feel like you're doing something productive, but you're avoiding the things that you need to do. when you could have just stopped and sat down and put your feet up and read a book or worked on your mindset or did a workout or did something that is going to fulfill you, give you more energy so that then you can move through your schedule with greater efficiency and love of what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you can't have self-care without self-love. So I love that you focus back on why you would want to do this and, focusing on what you want versus what you think you should be doing. We put so much pressure on ourselves. You're right. And I didn't even think about how that overwhelm and panic and how you can't get all the way done. Eventually it can turn into resentment because you're like, I just want 10 minutes to myself. And then you resent everything and everyone because you're just in that feeling of overwhelm and the guilt. And oh gosh, I didn't even think how it manifests as resentment. That's such a great point.
Yeah, and it does. And that's not how we want to do life. I know no one listening here, decided to become a mom or to take on the jobs or get married or whatever the roles that we fulfill because they wanted to be in a place of guilt and resentment. But it's like anything else in life, when we aren't intentional, then we will default to whatever our old stories and ideas and patterns are. And so I just encourage you, if you're listening, to create that space for yourself. Believe that you do have enough time, because you really do. I haven't met a woman yet who couldn't put 15 to 20 minutes into her day that were just solely for her. And once you do that, once you get that taste of, okay, I do have time for this and I can do the things, then you'll be able to expand on that time and you will find such greater happiness in your days.
Oh, yes. My hands are raised. Yes.
I love it.
Now, Kate, one small step. What is one small step today a listener could take to make more time for themselves? Not to make more time to, finish dinner or to meal prep, not take more time to work on homework with kids. That's all going to be there always. But what is one small step a woman could take today to make that one small little taste of self-care where they're like, oh, no, it feels amazing. And it's going to have this amazing snowball effect. What could they do today to make more time for themselves? It could be the smallest, tiniest little thing.
Yeah. So the smallest thing you can do is, let's say that you drink coffee in the morning or tea. I'm just guessing, maybe that you do. And while it is brewing, take those 5 minutes to take some deep breaths and listen to what's happening in your heart and your mind. And if you are a journaler, get out a piece of paper and write down all the thoughts that are coming up and just take a look at them and just get to know yourself better and see what it is that you're thinking, what is influencing you in your day. And that small habit can balloon into a much greater and fulfilling self-care habit.
Oh, yes, for sure. It's so funny you mentioned coffee or tea. Like when my coffee is brewing and when I finally make it, it's like a ritual and like a spiritual experience for me, because that's when I do my affirmations and I pray, and I'm always holding a hot cup of coffee. And I'm like, this is like my spiritual time with God, connecting to myself, to him, to all the things. But yeah, it's a really great way to start the day for sure.
And I love that you mentioned affirmations and prayer, because those are just such positive ways to encourage ourselves to connect to something greater than the overwhelm and the struggle that we get stuck in on a daily basis. So those are wonderful options. I love how you pair it with the coffee. You're right. It is such a spiritual experience to have that warm cup of coffee. It feels so grounding and elemental. So I am right there with you.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time this week because my frother broke and my coffee ritual is not the same right now. So I'm waiting for it to come, my new one to come from Amazon, to feel more grounded and like myself again.
Yes. Well, tell me more. So what is your coffee drink?
So I take black coffee and I usually add nut pods to it, usually vanilla.
Ooh, nice. See, I do butter coffee, like the bulletproof. So I brew my coffee and then I put it in the blender with some MCT and some butter and sometimes some cinnamon, some collagen, and it has that latte feel. But I've been thinking about getting a frother, so I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, it's such a more calming way to start your day. where I think we're so much more inclined just to turn to our phone and just start mindlessly scrolling, and you're giving away your thoughts and your ideas and that time for you literally to someone else, to social media, to see what
Yes.
other people are doing. And that's not good for you.
It definitely isn't, and I actually noticed that in myself last night, Emily, because I sat myself down to meditate. I love Joe Dispenza, and I've been doing his meditations fairly regularly.
Mm,
And so I had the time, I had done some journaling to kind of prepare. And then I had the thought of like, I think I had a message on Instagram I need to check. Right? Then that was the slippery slope. So I got
yep.
on Instagram, I
Mhm.
started looking at stuff. I felt my anxiety rising, and I ended up meditating, but it wasn't the experience that I think it would have been if I had stayed in that place. And so
Mhm.
I will often tell clients, and I do this myself, I do not look at my phone until I am starting my workday. So
Mm,
I leave it in airplane mode through my whole morning routine because I don't trust myself not to
yeah,
check my email
exactly.
and check social media. And so that's just
Mhm.
a really simple hack to protect your brain space first thing in the morning when you are most susceptible to other people's ideas and influences.
Yeah. Just taking that small little step. I've always shared in my self care journey how just these small little changes I made in my life and taking time for myself, it just had this, like I like to call a snowball effect. And then I started doing this, then I started doing that. And it all just started adding up to like my own self care routine that's still ever changing and ever evolving. But that's such a great, just thinking of something small, watching how that makes you feel, feeling it, and then
Mhm.
watching it grow from there. It's so good.
Yeah, and it's so encouraging what you said too, Emily, because it really is these small little baby steps that
Mhm.
really do not take anything out of your day, but as you add them up, they do create that snowball effect that can utterly transform your life. And it is possible for every woman listening to this podcast to have that in her life as well.
Mm, Such a good note to end on, Kate. Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm feeling so great as I'm drinking my coffee without my milk froth, but it's okay. Um, and I'm feeling even more inspired just to, take another look at my rhythms and the mindset I have for myself throughout the day. So thank you for inspiring me and for this
Yes.
conversation.
Thank you.
Well, where can everyone find you? What's next for you and what do you have going on?
Yeah. So, what I have coming up next is my group coaching program. I'm so excited for it. It is called the Purposeful Moms Club. And it is a small, intimate, supportive community where we work together to change habits, learn how to hit goals, because I know you know this, Emily, like it's an actual strategy to learn how to hit your goals, but also to do the identity work to feel really confident and purposeful in all of your roles and your life's calling. And so that's going on right now. Enrollment is until February 14th. And then just anytime, if you want to connect with me, I love having conversations. I love talking about mindset and changing your life as a mom. You can find me at thestreamlinedlife.com and on social media at the Streamlined Life.
That's so great. Thank you so much again,
Yes.
Kate, for this conversation. You're doing amazing work, and I know a lot of women listening today are going to feel super inspired.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily. It was truly an honor to be on here, and I loved having this conversation with you. I definitely think we are kindred spirits.
Yep, yep. I could talk to you all day,
I
but we'll leave it
know.
here. We'll leave it here for now, maybe for a future conversation.
Yes. Thank you again.
Awesome. You bet.
Thank you so much, Kate, for this conversation. So many bullet points that I took down as notes listening back to this, and I hope you, our listeners, are taking notes as well so you can start finding rhythm in your life to make time for self-care. So let's talk about my three biggest takeaways, and it was hard to narrow it down to just three, but I'll try my best. So number one, I love this one so much. Saying no is a reflection of ourselves and our own worth. When we are actually brave enough to stand up for our own needs, it actually gives us back more, gives us back more time. It builds that habit of saying no to things that aren't serving us right now. It just gives us back more. We're so eager to say yes to everything and pleasing everyone else. But that's when burnout happens. That's when you just hit the wall and you're done because you can't say no to anything. The boundaries are hard. I know it's hard to say no, but like Kate said, saying no can really be a reflection of yourself and your own worth, and you are worthy of the time for yourself. So give yourself back that time and learn your own boundaries. Number 2. I love this so much. We talked about rhythm and how that's a way more gentle and more kind to yourself versus the word schedule. I mean, we all keep a schedule. We all have our Google Calendar, our planner, or both, if you're like me, where you have everything written out and color-coded, what you're doing for the day. But do you ever look at that calendar, that schedule, and just feel overwhelmed? Absolutely. Now, I think it's good to stay organized like that, but a really great strategy that Kate mentioned is to do a time audit. Now, I do this a lot with my clients, like I mentioned, when we're talking about their habits throughout the day and figuring out how to habit stack and cueing in new, healthier habits to help them feel their best. But I love how Kate took this a step further and really leveled it up by writing by each task who that task is for. Oh my gosh, if you were to sit down and do that today, how many of those tasks that you would do on a daily basis are for you? Probably not very many, right? And it doesn't have to be like your whole day is about you. I get it. The whole day isn't going to be about you. But there should be a couple of little pockets in time in there for you, right? Right. And by, finding that rhythm for yourself and just getting a taste of self-care, like Kate mentioned, you're going to crave it more and find ways to consciously decide what things you want to do and what things you don't want to do that are best going to serve you and your family. So use that strategy. I loved it so much, and I'll be taking that with me from here as well. And then number 3, I can't even. So you have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, like Kate said. When she said that, that blew my mind, but I'm not really surprised because I have so many tabs open in my head and thinking about so many things a day, right? But she mentioned a dozen of them are on repeat every day. So what thoughts are you repeating in your head every day? When you're feeling overwhelmed and you're just stressed and you're like, I don't have enough time to do anything. Say to yourself, is this true? Is this really helping me to think this way or to do this thing? More than likely it's not. Coming up with new thoughts to lessen the overwhelm, thinking, like she said, the questions to ask yourself, well, what does need to be done? Well, what will get done, will get done. Just taking the pressure off yourself. Overwhelm comes from a sense of powerlessness, and you have the power to take control of your rhythm and what you want to feel like each day and what you want your schedule to look like. So lessen that overwhelm, become more powerful. And like she mentioned, this is really good for your kids too, just to think about empowering them and taking the overwhelm away from them too. I mean, how overscheduled are our kids, right? How can you empower them and lessen the overwhelm for them as well and let them know, hey, what gets done will get done. And and if you're feeling guilty about this or trying to feel guilty about scheduling some self-care, how long can you go serving others without meeting your own needs? Like Kate mentioned, sometimes that overwhelm over time, that feeling that you never get time for yourself, it can breed resentment and it can lead to unhealthy habits, like hitting the fridge when you're feeling anxious, drinking, not just a glass of wine, a couple glasses of wine, it turns into a bottle, scrolling social media mindlessly, comparing yourself to others. We can lose the overwhelm and find rhythm in our lives, rhythm that is going to make our whole family, our whole life feel like it's in harmony again, not that it's crazy, crazy, crazy anymore. So gang, I hope you loved today's show. If you would be so kind, leave a rating and review on iTunes. It makes it so much easier to find this show. And make sure to go search for Kate as well and listen to her show. You'll get a lot more nuggets of wisdom from her as well. Remember, it's the Streamlined Motherhood Podcast. I'll make sure to include a link in the show notes for you as well. And there's links there to join my newsletter and join my Facebook group, my community online, where we talk about the podcast a little bit further, and I always include a weekly worksheet to help you take your self-care to the next level and take action. Right. All right, gang, I hope you're staying warm and cozy. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you find some rhythm in your life and start taking action for you today. See you next week.